Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org, IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk, a bill that would have provided civil rights protections for lesbian, gay, and bisexual Hoosiers is officially dead.
We stumbled on the transgender issue. There just wasn't support because of concerns about what's going on nationally.
Coming up, why the debate over LGBT rights is far from over. About 1 in 5 Americans report some sort of hearing loss.
The problem with hearing is that it's so easy to deny. It creeps up on you, and you can claim that your wife is mumbling, or your children don't articulate, or restaurants have all gotten too noisy.
Next, how the National Hearing Test could help you hear better than you thought. And she sews around 700 garments each year and ships them all over the world. We'll travel to the basement workshop of Jan Lamm. Those stories, plus the latest headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Indiana lawmakers made a promise to Hoosiers last year in the wake of the controversy over the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. They said they would tackle the issue of LGBT rights. But a bill that would have provided civil rights protections for lesbian, gay, and bisexual Hoosiers is officially dead. Senate President Pro Tem David Long vowed to bring the measure to the Senate floor for debate this week. But after lawmakers proposed 27 amendments to the bill, it was clear there wasn't enough support for it to advance.
We stumbled on the transgender issue. There just wasn't support because of concerns about what's going on nationally with the bathroom issue. It's a real-time issue for us. People have concerns that extending civil rights in that direction at this time without knowing where we were headed, without knowing how the governments were going to act and the courts, was a mistake, and we had to know more about that and understand it better.
This was a blown opportunity. We should have taken this opportunity to confirm what I truly believe is the case in Indiana, which is that people in the state of Indiana do not discriminate. But you're right, there was a perception there, and we should have corrected that perception this year.
While the bill is dead, the debate over LGBT rights continues. Joining us now is Marjorie Hershey, Professor of Political Science at Indiana University, and State House reporter Brandon Smith. Thank you both for being here. Let's just start by discussing what would have been covered by Senate Bill 344. Brandon.
Well, we talk a lot about it. It's the LGB, but not the T. So Senate Bill 344, as it advanced, left the transgender community out of those protections and instead said, well, we're going to have a study committee this summer that will look at transgender issues specifically, because that was a big stumbling point in at the Senate Republican caucus. It also had a long list of exemptions. The regular ones that you see in a civil rights statute, religious organizations, churches, ministers, that sort of thing. But it went farther than that to include things like adoption agencies, crisis pregnancy service organizations, nonprofits, and small businesses that provide services for weddings. So that's anything from a baker who makes a cake for a wedding to a restaurant who hosts the rehearsal dinner or an anniversary party 20 years later. It was very broadly written, which was a lot of the problems that some people had with it.
So let's get to the bottom of, if we can, why did some of the lawmakers take issue with this?
Well, this is an issue on which there's very little room for compromise. I think clearly it's the case that this is a symbolic issue for many people. When we talk about, for example, exemptions for small businesses dealing with weddings, there's already an exemption in the state dealing with civil rights that exempts any small business that has 6 or fewer employees. If that's the case, then what's the need for mentioning those small businesses that specifically make wedding cakes? That's a symbolic effort, and that symbolic effort touches into a very basic difference, not only between the two parties, but within the Republican Party. And that's a big challenge.
And the irony is that the symbolic effort they tried to make in the bill still didn't satisfy the groups on the far right who said any mention of sexual orientation and gender identity in state protections, we will not support anything that says that. So it didn't matter if the wedding cakes were in or out, they weren't going to support it no matter what.
Well, legislators are saying that this debate isn't over. Here's Senate Minority Leader Tim Lannon.
The issue's not going away. Next year, even maybe the next half of the session, who knows? Our caucus is willing to debate it at any time, and I would say to those young people, hang in there. You've got people who are on your side. In fact, I think most of the state is probably on their side.
So Lannon there is saying that it might come back again. Is that a possibility?
The debate will come back in the House. The House Minority Leader Scott Pielath has already pledged that his caucus will try to introduce amendments to various bills in the second half of the session that deal with the LGBT rights issue, but Republicans won't accept those amendments. I mean,
the Republicans have a supermajority in the House that makes it rather limited for the Democrats to be able to do anything.
So they'll try to have the debate, but that's as far as it'll go.
But if we're looking ahead to next year, what form could this take?
It's going to have a big impact on the 2016 elections. And here, the real challenge is for the Republican Party, because the two biggest contenders, or at least two of the three biggest contenders on this debate, who have opposite views to one another, are both mainstays of Republican strength in Indiana. On the one hand, we have big business, which is traditionally allied with the Republican Party, who doesn't want to have their chances ruined of attracting LGBT employees who are very capable, or non-LGBT employees who just don't want their kids to go to school in an area that is so traditional, who want to see these rights protected. And then evangelical Christians, who are a big part of the turnout for Republicans in primaries, who want to see complete protections, complete religious exemptions.
Hate to cut it off, but we have to stop here. Thanks so much for being here today. Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brosier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Columbus-based Cummins is scaling back operations because of continuing operating losses. The engine manufacturer recorded a $300 million loss in 2015 and is anticipating a lackluster 2016 as well. In preparation, company officials say they are, quote, taking difficult but necessary steps to cut costs. The state's HIV outbreak is approaching 200 cases as new people continue to be diagnosed. The Indiana State Department of Health says 4 people have tested positive since December 4th. All of them were in contact with others who were HIV positive. That brings the total number of people affected to 188. The state is urging at-risk individuals to consider pre-exposure prophylaxis. That's a medication that can reduce the risk of HIV through injection drug use by more than 70%. The State Board of Animal Health is downsizing its presence in Du Bois County 3 weeks after an outbreak of avian flu left more than 400,000 birds dead. There have been no new cases of avian flu since the initial outbreak, and farmers have been able to ship eggs and meat as long as they produce negative test results. The State Board of Animal Health is also reminding all commercial and private bird owners that they're required to track any additions or sales of birds for 3 years. The outbreak of swine flu in the Putnamville Correctional Facility appears to be over. Dozens of inmates fell sick from the virus and 1 died. The prison has resumed normal operations, including visitations and program assignments. 4 Indiana cities are facing a lawsuit challenging LGBT protections in their human rights ordinances. The complaint alleges the local laws in Bloomington, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Carmel violate the Religious Freedom Restoration Act lawmakers passed last year.
I mean, the people who were suing us didn't, they didn't tell us, they told the newspaper, So I think it gives you a little bit of insight into what their motives are. But nonetheless, we intend to defend ourselves.
Bloomington's mayor also responded to the suit. John Hamilton called it meritless. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of the Indiana Family Institute, Indiana Family Action, and the American Family Association of Indiana. Officials in northern Indiana are getting ready to begin a 2-year project to repair the state's toll road. The company that leases the toll road is spending $200 million on improvements, including asphalt and bridge repairs. The Indiana Toll Road Concession Company will pay for the repairs. Construction is expected to start in March. 5% of Bloomington's parking meters are failing, and the city's mayor says that's unacceptable. Mayor John Hamilton says the failure rate is down from 18% last year. He says the ongoing issues have cost the city at least 6 figures in revenue. The city will work with its parking meter vendor to bring the failure rate down. If that doesn't happen, Hamilton says the city could consider changing vendors. Hoosiers are concerned about the possible spread of the Zika virus to Indiana. The World Health Organization declared a global health emergency this week. The virus is mainly transmitted by mosquito bites. It's rarely fatal, but it has been linked to birth defects, including shrunken heads and incomplete brain development.
We have certain infrastructure that we just deal with on a daily basis. We've got air conditioning. We don't have to leave our windows open during the summer. We have mosquito screens on our windows that minimize the contact, can minimize the contact between mosquito and human.
Indiana Congresswoman Susan Brooks is co-sponsoring a bill to put the Zika virus on the tropical disease priority list, which would expedite the process to create prevention measures. Flags are at half-staff in honor of former Governor Edgar Whitcomb, who died yesterday at the age of 98. His political career included time as a state senator, secretary of state, and governor from 1969 to 1973. Whitcomb escaped twice from a Japanese prisoner of war camp in World War II. During his 70s, he sailed around the world. Governor Pence called Whitcomb a courageous adventurer who inspired generations of Hoosiers. Well, low gas prices mean more money in your wallet these days. The cost per gallon is expected to stay down for a while, and as Harrison Wagner explains, that could have long-term implications.
A preliminary report released by researchers with Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs states that the EPA's fuel standards must change in light of lower fuel prices. Between 2017 and 2021, the average fuel rating for new cars must rise to around 45 miles per gallon, but that number was based on what experts in 2012 thought fuel prices would be in 2015.
When the rules were written in 2012, the projections for fuel prices for 2015 were at about $3.5 per gallon.
Those projections were just a little off.
What we actually observed in 2015, which was an average fuel price of about $2.20 per gallon in the US. So there has been a dramatic decrease in fuel prices.
And oil prices keep dropping. The report states that due to these falling gas prices, the benefits of the EPA's regulations could be affected. Higher fuel prices means more people buy more efficient cars. Lower prices means people buy more gas guzzlers, like SUVs and pickups. There isn't as much of a price incentive when gas prices are cheaper as there is when prices are higher. A hybrid is going to cost more than a non-hybrid, and someone buying a hybrid will save less on gas when prices are lower as opposed to when they're higher. Ziraganis and his colleagues state that because of these low fuel prices, as well as other factors such as increasingly cheaper fuel-saving technologies, regulations should be stricter. But what if fuel prices rise?
There has to be some sort of safety valve in the regulation such that fuel efficiency standards are adjusted based on the price of gasoline.
Meaning higher standards for lower gas prices and lower standards for higher gas prices. This would try to keep savings the same for purchasing a more fuel-efficient vehicle. The only problem is, automakers need 5 or 6 years to design and produce the more efficient vehicles. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Harrison Wagner.
The Salvation Army may be facing cuts after its annual Red Kettle campaign fell short. The goal was $3.5 million. The Kettle campaign ended about $300,000 short of that goal. The fiscal year goes through September, so there's still some time for the Salvation Army to make up some of that lost ground. Well, you may remember the 2 Bloomington entrepreneurs who hoped to open the state's first cat cafe. Well, that project has come to an end. The duo say they only raised about a quarter of the money they needed. Cats at the cafe were going to be available for adoption. Joe, there's going to be a cat cafe in Indiana that we need to open now. There's desire for it out there.
It takes a lot to put together a business. Maybe they can regroup and try again later.
I think that's the hope.
Thanks, Barbara. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Do you find someone you love is saying, speak up? Coming up, we'll look at a hearing test you can take on the phone. It's the first of its kind, but does it work? And she sews around 700 capes each year that are sold around the world. We'll travel to the hidden workshop of Jan Lamm. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Nature takes you places where you've never gone before.
It's watching something that's actually happened.
Nature sure draw me in the story.
Just their power and their grace.
You know, it was just so beautiful to watch them.
The movement and just watching the body and watching the chase.
Like this huge, lush, vibrant watercolor.
Chimps.
There was such a shot of underneath watching these elephants swim in this deep water.
I had no idea even they could swim like that.
I saw one monkey pulling on this one monkey's tail, and the monkey like, man, what you doing? What you doing?
It's like the theater of the wild or something.
7 billion trillion animals living on one planet.
It's like more colorful than than you think life can possibly be.
Somewhere between the mystique and the beauty of it is reason enough to sit down and watch.
That's life. And that's nature.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. It was another busy week at the State House. 2 road funding bills remain. The House GOP plan is headed to the Senate, and the governor's plan is headed to the House. The House GOP plan would raise the gas tax to help generate long-term revenue for road funding. It also shifts all of the sales tax on gas into infrastructure funding. And to cover that shift, the proposal raises the cigarette tax. The governor's plan does not increase taxes, but it calls on $200 million from the state's budget reserves. House Democrats saw the end of their road funding bill on Monday. A bill banning women from having abortions because of the fetus race, gender, or disability is headed to the House. The bill's supporters emphasize its protection for children with Down syndrome. The bill does allow an abortion if the baby is expected to die before birth or within months of birth. Legislation to limit logging in Indiana's forests is dead. In previous legislative sessions, GOP opposition halted bills that would have limited logging. This year, advocates were hoping for more support because the legislation was authored by Republicans. The bill would have required at least 10% of the state's forests to remain untouched by loggers. A controversial bill that would allow the sale of alcohol at Indiana Dunes State Park is advancing to the Senate. The bill gives the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission authority to issue permits to state parks without local input. And that would have paved the way for a developer to appeal a local board's recent decision denying an alcohol permit for the pavilion at the Dunes State Park. A bill that would scrap the state's standardized I-STEP exam is headed to the Senate. The bill would create a commission to evaluate Indiana's system for measuring K-12 performance and establish the next generation of assessments. Additionally, it could require a rescore of last year's I-STEP test, but those grades would not override the previous grades. And the House and the Senate passed bills that would block someone convicted of a drug crime from buying certain cold medicines without a prescription. The bill's author says the legislation targets those who are a threat to the spread of meth production in Indiana. Indiana leads the nation in meth production. About 1 in 5 Americans report some sort of hearing loss, but what's more alarming is there are even more people out there who have a hearing problem they didn't know about. The National Hearing Test aims to change that. Reporter Barbara Brozier joins us now. Barbara, how does the test work?
Well, Joe, it's the first scientifically verified hearing test administered over the phone. We all know someone who seems to have problems hearing. For me, that person is my dad, who is constantly asking people to repeat themselves. I had him take the test, and the results were surprising. My parents' living room is constantly filled with the sounds of rock and roll.
This is Warren Zevon.
My dad's always had a passion for music, and in his opinion, the louder the better.
I can remember in college laying on my bed and putting a speaker next to each ear and then blasting the stereo in my ears and just laying there and listening to like that.
He's also been to a lot of concerts during his lifetime.
This picture was taken in Sedalia, Missouri, I believe. It was at a rock festival. I went there when I was much younger and had a lot more hair.
We figured all that loud music, combined with him getting older, would affect his hearing.
I cannot hear as well as I used to. I do have to kind of, make more of an effort to listen carefully.
So we decided to put that theory to the test.
Welcome to the National Hearing Test. Please enter the access code that you were given.
The National Hearing Test is a $5 screening people can take over the phone. It was developed by scientists at Bloomington-based Communication Disorders Technology, and it's a test they never thought they'd see in their lifetimes.
We were all brought up in hearing science to believe that you absolutely could not give a hearing test over the telephone for the simple reasons that the bandwidth, the frequencies that it delivers, aren't wide enough to cover the usual bandwidth of the pure tones, the little beeps that are normally used in hearing tests.
What makes the test work is that instead of pure tones, it uses speech to test hearing capacity. It takes about 10 minutes and tests hearing in both ears.
During this test, you will hear 3-digit sequences such as 351, presented in a noisy background.
If you were right, it gets a little more difficult on the next presentation. And when you're wrong, it gets easier.
Some people question the validity of an over-the-phone screening. The National Hearing Test isn't meant to replace an in-person visit to an audiologist, but it can help people determine whether or not they need to make an appointment. And the test has been scientifically verified.
A number of people took the National Hearing Test and then followed that with a full exam in a clinic. And the two results were compared with each other.
So far, about 80% of the people who've taken the test have had some sort of hearing problem. And scientists say there are a lot more with hearing loss who haven't been tested.
When you read, you and you start to lose your eyesight, you can tell right away because things get blurry on the page, and you know that there's only one reason that's happening is because your eyes are starting to go. With hearing, it's a little bit more complicated because you don't really have that point of reference in the same way.
Scientists say on average there's about a 10-year lapse between the time a person starts to notice hearing loss and when they seek help for the problem. The developers of the National Hearing Test want to help close that gap.
You know, when you start saying, well, my wife mumbles, well, maybe it's not your wife, it's you. And you can take the National Hearing Test and find out it's you.
Their biggest barrier is getting people to take the test. While it only costs $5, they're finding the target audience is hesitant to enter credit card information online. Making the test available for free would remove that barrier, but it's unclear how the effort would be funded.
It could be a part of something like Medicare or Medicaid. It's such a tiny amount. I computed that if every Medicaid customer or Medicare was charged 1 penny, we could fund the whole country for free.
In the meantime, people will have to pay in order to find out whether their hearing is adequate.
Your score for your right ear was within the normal range.
And my dad was pleasantly surprised by his results.
In the normal range for both ears.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, I am.
Sounds like he won't be turning down that music anytime soon. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier. So based on your results, the test tells you whether you need to make an appointment with an audiologist. I was surprised by my dad's results too, but even more surprised to learn that I am apparently suffering from hearing loss in at least one ear. And Joe, scientists say it's not just the people who are 65 and older. Young people are also prone to hearing loss as well.
All right, thank you very much, Barbara. In the basement of a suburban home, one seamstress is making custom wardrobe dreams come true. She specializes in capes, and as J.D. Gray reports, her work reaches a large audience.
Jan Lamm started sewing when she was 4 years old. Eventually, she got into making wedding dresses, then costumes. In the 90s, she began selling capes. Lamm works out of a studio in her basement. She estimates that she makes 700 garments each year.
Everything I sew already has a buyer.
Her fans are so happy with her work that they often write her letters to say thank you. You could say she is an expert seamstress. Each cape is custom designed. If you think of famous capes like the one worn by Dracula or the Phantom of the Opera, the family members of those famous horror actors have hired Lamm to make replicas. To get them right, Lamm goes to great lengths to track down authentic pieces, like she had to do one time when asked to use a rare button.
So then I had to go and find a collector of black jet mourning buttons, which I really did. I found a collector in Canada and bought the entire collection so that I could reproduce these capes.
Lamm's busiest time of year is, to no surprise, Halloween, but she's found a market with people that wear capes year-round.
Doing a cape is so varied. It can be so many different things. But really, I sew to make a living, so I have to go where the money is.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm J.D. Gray.
And that's all the time we have. More news at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers, now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. SIphysicians.org, IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.